Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're learning about the art of the selfie. That's right, your selfie. You're going to be using an iPad to take a picture of yourself. You're also going to get a binder clip and a little tracing paper that you're going to write your name and class code very small in the corner. Then you're going to use your iPad to take a selfie. Yep, that's right. Now, when you're composing this self-portrait, though, it's important that you include your shoulders, your neck, and your whole head. You want to make sure to take up most of the screen. If you're too tiny or down too low or down in the corner or you're not taking up that whole screen, it's going to be much harder for you to draw today. We will be tracing our self-portraits right on the screen. So you want to make sure that you get a selfie that you love that's going to turn into your self-portrait that you create in art. If you have the live feature on, please make sure that you turn that live feature off. That's that yellow button I just pressed off. Then I'm going to go through my photos and pick my favorite one. I'm going to click delete on any that I don't like. If I need to retake it, make sure that live button is turned off. Make sure you're liking how you look, that your head is up near the top of it, you're holding it vertically, that's the straight up and down way like I'm holding it, not horizontally side to side. And if you want to include a hand motion that's school appropriate, you can, but make sure that you are up for the challenge because it's definitely a lot more difficult to include your hands in your drawing. I think this is a good self-portrait, so this is my favorite one. Now I click edit and turn it to the monochromatic feature. I hit mono because that means black and white. By turning my self-portrait into black and white and hitting that edit button, it'll allow me to see my contour lines of my face a lot easier. Contour lines are the most important lines or outlines in your self-portrait. Those are the lines that we're going to be tracing with our paper on top of the iPad today. I'm going to turn my iPad horizontally. That way the photo turns into a smaller photo, but it's still the same vertical direction that I took it to begin with. Then I'm going to use the binder clip to open and clip to the iPad so that the paper stays in place. I already wrote my name and class code on my paper, and now I have clipped it to the iPad. We're going to begin tracing those contour lines. Think of yourself like a coloring book. A coloring book would only have outlines. Those are contour lines. So today, when you're tracing yourself, make sure that you're not coloring anything in. That would not be contour lines. So I'm leaving any room, even inside my eyebrows. I'm breaking everything down into different shapes. By doing that, I'm going to allow room for paint. So I'm only outlining the very most important lines. Think of yourself as a cartoon. If you were a cartoon, you wouldn't have all the little details that you have in real life. Not every little hair, not all your teeth, not every little line in your eyebrows, just the most important lines. You're going to simplify yourself by only doing those outlines. If you do want to include a little detail, like say I'm wearing a necklace, I make sure that I trace that too. When I'm going over top of my lines, I need to make sure that I've gotten everything, all the most important ones. I can check on my screen if I am doing a good job by, well, for one, making sure that it's clipped. If you need 2 clips, you can clip it in place, but I can always turn off the screen to see how I'm doing. That way I can see underneath will turn off and I'll be able to see just my drawing. You'll really be impressed once you take it off and you'll see it by itself. See, it doesn't look too bad. Now, if I notice that there are some lines that I missed, like maybe I need to include a few more lines in my face, or maybe I need to erase part of my lip, maybe I didn't like how my teeth looked, you could do that by turning that screen off, then turning it back on and going back to drawing on your selfie. You want to make sure that you're outlining all those important lines and that you like it. Nothing really too tiny. If you draw too small today, it will not work when we get to the painting part. We're going to be doing something really exciting to these, so I want to make sure that you love them. This is a very important step to creating your own self-portrait. So make sure that you are tracing only those important lines and that you hold down the screen with 2 fingers. You'll notice I'm always holding down my screen with my opposite hand, the hand I don't draw with, or my non-dominant hand, as I draw my self-portrait with my dominant hand. That makes sure that the screen doesn't move on me. You'll notice that the screen does tend to move a lot if you don't keep a finger on it. It'll try to exit out as you're drawing with the pencil because it thinks you're a finger moving the screen. When you're drawing with that pencil, please make sure that you're pressing very lightly. You don't want to press down too hard on that screen because it could hurt the iPad. These are the school iPads, and if you're mistreating them or using them inappropriately, you will lose that iPad and have to do this drawing on your own without the help of tracing. It's going to be a lot harder for you to find your contour lines without that iPad. So please make sure that you're using it the right way. Otherwise, your privilege privileges will get revoked for using the iPads for the year. So please make sure you're doing everything the right way. You can always draw on your own if you need to when you turn off that screen. If you notice it's easier to draw in a couple lines, like say your hairline or your part, you can go ahead and draw those in. Those are important lines. You want to make sure that you get all of them. I would even suggest when you think you're done, taking off the paper and holding it up next to your full self-portrait. Did you get all the important lines? Did you leave space like it was a coloring book? Could somebody come and color it in? You want to make sure that there's room and that you broke everything down into shapes. Even I have some lines that are a little too small that might not have enough room for paint, like my eyes. They were a little too detailed. I got a little too detailed and heavy lined in my eyes. I even have a little few lines in my hair, but that's okay, just to show that it's long and that it keeps going past my shoulders and down by my hands. So you can include some lines, like say where my fingers bend. I'm going to include those lines because they're important. If I don't finish my self-portrait by the time that it's time to clean up, I'm going to turn my iPad over and look for the letter and number. That's going to be what I write somewhere small on my paper so I remember which iPad I had, so I can access the same self-portrait or selfie photo in the Photos app next week. Please make sure you do that, otherwise it's going to be very difficult to find out your self-portrait to finish next week. When you're done, put your clips back and everything else, and these will go in our table folders. If you have extra time and you work quick today, you will get a printing plate. This is a piece of styrofoam that we are going to use to create our very own stamps. When I see that your self-portrait is finished on your tracing paper and you've got all the contour lines ready, I will give you that piece of styrofoam that you can put your tracing paper on top of. We will tape it carefully to that styrofoam because you're going to trace your contour lines one more time. Actually, 2 more times. Yep, it's a lot of work, but these come out really awesome. Make sure to put your name and class code on the back with a Sharpie this time. You want to use Sharpie on the back of the styrofoam because nothing else is going to work on that styrofoam. Your pencil is going to carve into it, and we don't want that on the back, and nothing else will work. So please make sure to use Sharpie on the back to write your name. Then, after you've got it taped down and it's lined up and all ready, you're going to use 2 different colors of pens to trace over your contour lines. That's because you need to trace them 2 times. That's why we're using 2 different colors, so that there's no cheating. I will know if you've really traced them 2 times because I should be able to see both colors of your pen. We'll select 1 colored pen and 1 black pen. That way I can tell the difference between the 2 lines. I would start with your colored pen first and end with the black pen, but if you want to do it differently, that's okay. When you're tracing over your lines this time, you should hear a crinkling noise. That means that you are tracing beyond the paper and down into the styrofoam to leave a print. That will help create the stamp. It is so important that you do a great job and take your time because you only get 1 tracing paper and only 1 piece of styrofoam. The styrofoam is a little expensive, so you especially only get 1. If you rip it or break it or accidentally scrabble all over it, you will not be able to get a second one, so please make sure that you are tracing carefully and slowly. Now, it will take a lot of work to carve into it. You are basically carving into this piece of foam to create your portrait into it. We are using the tracing paper, that way you have practice first and can trace it into that styrofoam since you only get 1 piece and only 1 chance. There's actually no way to sketch into styrofoam because even if you used a pencil, it would still show on there and start to carve in with that imprint from pressing down. Okay, if your paper starts to rip as you're tracing. If it does, that's a good thing. That means that you're pressing down hard enough. You don't want to press down so hard that it completely rips through the styrofoam though. That would be pressing too hard. You want to press hard just enough that you can hear a crinkling noise, and your paper might even rip a little bit. That's okay. You don't want to go too crazy and rip the whole thing though, because that would mean that you're tracing a little too hard, and also then you wouldn't have your paper to trace anymore. And remember, once you get all the lines one time, you're going to have to go back over them another time. This time I'm using my black ink, and I'm going to go over all of the lines. I want to make sure that I am outlining very carefully around small areas like my eyes. You don't want any 2 lines to run into each other. That means that, say, if I have a shape like my eyebrows, if they're not big enough, those 2 lines are going to run into each other and create 1 line. You want to make sure to leave this contour lines like that coloring book, leaving space for paint on the inside of the shapes. If any two lines run close together, it will not work out for the painting part of this, which is really cool and I can't wait to show you. Once you can prove to me that you've outlined all your contour important lines 2 times, I will let you peek underneath that paper to see if you have made a print into the styrofoam. Then we can carefully lift up one end of the tape and see if you made a print into that foam. That's going to create a stamp where certain areas are raised. If you did it successfully, you'll be able to feel onto that styrofoam and feel all of the bumps or indents where you carved in. If you notice there's any spot where you cannot feel it with your finger and it doesn't feel like it's carved in or indented, you will need to go back over top and trace again to make sure all of those lines are there. In my case, the inside of my eyes or the iris and the pupils didn't really come out too well. Even though I can't see them and not all the lines are black, that's okay. It still made a stamp or an imprint that I can use when we print with these next week. We will be able to make prints or copies of these again and again. I cannot wait to show you those next week, but this week when you're done, put your work into your table folder. And then again, let's review what we're supposed to do.